of Voices conference call. I'm Jenn Kuzmyk. I'm the Executive Director of the BANFF World Media Festival. And first of all, just let me say that we are absolutely thrilled with the contingent of Diversity of Voices participants this year. For those of you that have been to the festival before, you'll have a little bit of an idea of what goes on there, but I assume that most of you have not. And so the point of this call is really to prep you for your experience there. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the offerings that we have at the festival, some of the things you may want to take part in, and then we're going to move into some conversation with a former Diversity of Voices participant from last year, and then some pitching advice for you, which is super important because, of course, that's one of the biggest reasons that you're there, along with the professional development. So in terms of BANFF and what goes on there, you may be aware that it is a 40-year-old festival. This is our 40th anniversary this year, which is a big deal in terms of staying power in the industry. A lot has changed in 40 years, and it seems to be speeding up. And so a big part of our goal is to, and what we deliver on, is keeping up with what's happening in the industry. A large mandate for BANFF, you'll also see, is having an international mindset and having international participants. And that's important. As Canadian creator producers, of course, the entire Canadian industry is there, and that's an excellent place for you to intersect with potential partners, broadcasters, streamers, etc. However, we have participants from more than 25 countries. And having been a producer myself, having worked in international distribution as well, knowing the importance of not only understanding the international landscape for media and content and programming, but also understanding that really nothing is made, financed, or watched in one territory only. So having that contact with international partners is really what we want to super serve to all of the delegates, and including the Diversity of Voices participants. That said, just a few notes. Please do, if you haven't already, please do check out the agenda on the festival website to get a full rundown of all of the sessions, and you'll be able to sort of start to plan your schedule by looking at those sessions that pertain to you and what you're doing at the festival in terms of the genres you're interested in and the people you're interested in hearing from. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to log into your BANFF Exchange portal, and that's where you can connect with each other and do request meetings with different people that are at the festival. I would also encourage you to pay close attention to the speaker list. Those are also people that you may want to be meeting with, and those are all profiled on the website. And Tee's going to get a little bit more into how to get to those people and how to book your meetings specifically, but I would encourage you just to be relentless. So I guess that's probably all for me from now. I'll probably chime in throughout the rest of this call, and if there's specific questions that you have, you can possibly send those through, and we also have some questions that have already been sent through that we'll be addressing. So over to Kevin, over to Tee to talk about her experience.
Hi everyone, and congratulations. You're going to have an amazing time in June. I did. And I have no doubt you will too. I'll hop right into, I just sort of put together a list of stuff that I did that I found to be useful and stuff that I learned where my stuff was not so useful. So the first thing that I did was I used, in advance of the festival, as in right now, I sort of made it my full-time job to go through the delegates list that is made available to you through the portal. And I researched as many humans on that list as I could to figure out which of those people. I had multiple projects when I went. So what I tried to do is figure out which people I wanted to reach out to because I thought that they would be a great fit for my projects. And I reached out to every single one of them. So that's a time-consuming process for sure, but for me, it paid off. I had even though last year we were not accepted into the program until after all the face-to-face stuff happened, which I believe closes today, so I hope that you're looking at that stuff. I still ended up with a full slate of meetings through my time there, so that was really useful, the delegates portal. But do your research, because one of the things that I learned was that one of the things that I learned through all the content sessions that I attended and through content sessions that I've attended since is that fit is really, really important. So there's no point in reaching out to somebody, you know, that is not a fit for your project. If they produce children's animation, don't reach out to them with a 1-hour drama, for instance. I was very specific to target my reach outs in terms of fit. I would, in order to reach out to people, how I reached out to people was I tried a very minimalist approach. So I gave them a little bit about me and a little bit about the project and why I thought they were a good fit. But it's tempting to want to say, here's my pilot, just please read my pilot, because you think you might only have that one chance to reach out to them, but it's not useful, it's overwhelming, and people aren't going to read it. So I tried to pique their interest with my project and with me, because you're part of the package deal, I believe. And I got a lot of meetings that way, so it was successful. I started with a really carefully written log line for a project, or a way to describe the project, and a little bit about my story, and that proved
And how many meetings
successful.
did you have over the course of the festival?
So I met with all of the broadcasters either there or afterwards, because some people said, you know, we're all in Toronto, so we should do it in Toronto. And I met with multiple producers.
Did you have 10 meetings, 30 meetings?
I probably had, we were there 4 days, and I probably had 2 to 3 meetings a day. So probably 10 meetings, which is, in terms of like scheduling, that's about all that I could manage. Each meeting was probably an hour in length or more.
That's long.
Yeah, I had long meetings, but I had multiple projects, as I said, and I had really targeted people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, probably the broadcasters in particular, do tend to schedule half-hour meetings.
Yeah.
And
So
it's a good idea to set up your schedule on half-hour blocks.
I think that's probably true,
Yeah.
and all of mine went long, so that was, I guess, good in a way. Initially, so not everybody's gonna, one of the things that you should know is not everybody's gonna answer you on the list when you reach out, and that's okay. Don't take that personally, just keep reaching out to people, appropriate people.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in terms of like sending one message through Banff Exchange or one email is just, you're likely not gonna hear back. And so you're gonna have to send another and another, and that's why you need to start now. And also don't underestimate the power of a phone call, because that's fine too. Always, obviously keeping it professional and you know, but this is your job right now, is to get your meetings booked.
Totally. I didn't call anybody, so I just learned that right now. It didn't occur to me when I was going through that process.
People don't call
that
anymore.
might have been
It's like
useful.
kind of a secret weapon. Don't do it all the time, but you know what? It's if there's somebody you really want to get to and you've sent an email or two, send a call or do a call and say, you know, just referencing the email that I sent earlier today, I just wanted to follow up, and it has power.
For sure. Okay, so one of the things that I did was I had all my materials ready to go ahead of time, and I uploaded them into Google Drive. By my materials, I mean, you know, my one-pagers, my log lines, my Bibles, my pilot scripts. I had all of that, and I uploaded it into a Google Drive so that I could have it available to me. But what I ended up choosing to do most of the time was following up after the festival, because I felt like everybody was being so bombarded with so much information that I was worried that it would get lost in the mix. So I followed up probably about a week. I started following up probably about a week and a half after I got home. And that was good, because that's when everybody actually agreed to read my stuff. So that was really good. I practiced all of my pitches out loud a lot before I went in various formats. I'm an actor. I've been an actor for many, many years. So that was an obvious thing for me to do. But even as such, I could have used even more practice practice, finding ways to make my materials more conversational. Because what I learned was that what I wrote on the page was not I didn't necessarily write good monologues when I wrote good pitching material on paper. They didn't necessarily translate to the words, and I'm sure that you're going to hear a lot more about that in a few minutes. I tried to see as much of the content as I could throughout the 4 days, and that was like a masterclass for me in terms of the industry. I learned so much, and I probably would have approached many things differently had I been able to attend those content sessions before I went. But the one thing that I can say that I definitively learned was that I had a lot of focus on broadcasters when I went last year. But what I didn't focus on was international partners and producers that could actually help me grow the
distributors
project.
And producers.
So I didn't focus on that near enough, and I wish I had. I opened doors with broadcasters where I can go in and pitch again, except that what I've discovered over time is that that's really not where the money is in the industry, and you need those other people first. Not necessarily, that's not a rule, I don't want to make a rule, but that's how I would approach it differently going back to the festival. So see as much of the content as you can. Well, okay, this is just, me personally. I hadn't been to Banff in 25 years, so I would schedule myself a day ahead or a day after to spend more time in Banff, because I spent more time was in the hotel, and you're in a beautiful place, and it's worth seeing that too while you're there. I'd bring a warmer coat. It was like winter when I was there.
It can be quite cold.
It can get quite cold.
Also,
there are lots of layers.
Insider tip, if you don't arrive before or stay after, and you just want to feel like you've actually been in Banff and not been out of that damn hotel the entire time, if you go out back behind the hotel by the sushi restaurant and where the spot is, and you go out that exit, and there's a stairs there that you go down to what's called the Wild House restaurant, and you can take a half hour out of your day, go down there, climb down the stairs, sit at the edge of the river, breathe in some air, look at the mountains, and feel like you've been in Banff, and then go back into the hotel.
And sell your show. Bring comfortable shoes. The hotel is huge, and there's a lot of slightly fancy things for the awards, which were really fun. And I got to actually talk to Chrissy Metz, so that was amazing last year. Yeah. The restaurants are pricey. And so one of the things that you can do is, if you go out the front doors of the hotel, across the courtyard on the diagonal, there's a little corner store there that sells pre-made sandwiches and fruit and vegetables and things like that you can have at a more affordable price. And then I'll flip over to here, which are the questions that, should I do these now that came in?
Well, why don't we each
Okay.
do our thing. I just want to jump back in just with a few things that you referenced.
Yeah.
So we'll be sending out both optional and not at the festival, right from the opening day on the Sunday, to meet each other at the outset of the festival, which is super important because there's tons of cocktails and things like that. And who likes to walk into a cocktail when you don't know anybody? So you guys will already know 99 other people, which is great. And then we have the Diversity of Voices lunch, which is another sort of networking opportunity and a free meal. And then the second.
Go to the lunch early, because I didn't go to the lunch early, and I ended up not being able to choose a table that was a good table for me.
Yeah, there will be some interesting people in that lunch for sure. And then all of the opening ceremonies and opening sessions, and Sunday kicks off huge with the Banff debate, which I think will be just an absolute killer session. And then a keynote with Jeffrey Katzenberg, and who doesn't want to hear from Jeffrey Katzenberg? And then other things that Tee mentioned are the awards. So on the Monday afternoon is the International Program Competition, and that is the big juried awards. And some of the really biggest shows in the world are honored there. And then on the Tuesday night is the gala. And that is where sort of all the biggest star power and the biggest executives in the business are. And it's a really great, cool show. And you get an opportunity to really mix and mingle with everybody that's at the festival there. And that's another another super thing to go to. And then on the Monday evening, we also are hosting a 40th anniversary barbecue that's off-site. So just put that in your calendars. It's after dinner, and it's a bus ride out to this amazing ranch in the mountains, and it's a really fun party. But don't party too hard because you got stuff on the Tuesday morning. And then I will note that's actually a thing, managing your energy at the festival for sure. And then on the Wednesday morning, we have brought in a very special speaker specifically for diversity of voices. That is a woman from The Wit, and The Wit does this amazing distillation of all of the international landscape of media and all of the hits around the world. So you're going to walk out of that session understanding the entire global trends in media. It's a really good session. I think it's going to set you up really well to sort of understand your place as a creator. And that's all I have for now. And now over to Kevin Wright to talk to you specifically about pitching.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about, and previously to what I'm doing now, I was a Senior Vice President of Programming for the Movie Network. I've commissioned over 60 series, a couple thousand episodes of TV, and I've heard lots of pitches. So what I'm bringing to you is the insight that I've garnered from hearing many pitches and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Sunday at 1 p.m. So this is very much a micro taste of that session. So I recommend, if you do have time on the Sunday, to hear my full session, because I get into much more detail, and I think you'll find it beneficial. So first off, I'm going to basically cover two things. What is a pitch first, and then how to make a pitch as effective as possible. So a pitch is try not to think of it as a sales pitch. You're not selling used cars or aluminum siding. The goal of your pitch is to get the person that you're telling your idea, your project to, the goal is to get them as excited about the project as you are. So you basically want to confer your passion to them. So if you think of it as more of a step of seduction rather than a sales pitch, I think it's much more comfortable to come at it that way. And in fact, if you can get the decision maker, that's what I'll call whoever you're pitching to, if you can get that decision maker to fall in love with your project, they will move mountains for it. If I love the project, I would know that it's effective and is caught by the person you're pitching. So that's the goal of the pitch. Now I'm going to walk through kind of what the roadmap of a pitch is. I'm assuming everyone got my one sheet of tips, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So I've mapped out what the components are of a pitch once you do get in, or once you are speaking to the person that you're pitching. And usually it starts with small talk. And here it's just, hey, how's the conference going? Kept at a light level. And my recommendation here is, if you do see an opportunity for personal connection, it's obviously a great time and place to do that. You don't want to get too personal, but it is a great opportunity to see if there's some connection between you and the person that you're pitching. And the other thing to watch out for is don't let the small talk go on too long. You have a very limited bit of time to talk to this person, so try not to get too comfortable and let the small talk go on too long. You do want to get right to the meat of the matter as quickly as possible. One way that I recommend that you make that segue as natural as possible, instead of saying, well, I guess I should start my pitch now, and feel a bit self-conscious doing that, I suggest that you start talking about yourself, and that's what I call the credentials. So here what you want to do is you want to clarify and establish what in your background makes you qualified to deliver this project. You can briefly talk maybe about the genesis of the project or what this project means to you personally, but very briefly and in a very relevant way, what in your background it makes you suitable to present this project, to execute this project. And the way this is a great segue is when you move from small talk to what I call this component of of the pitch, the monologue, is you are now going to take the floor. You're going to be talking essentially to the decision maker, and you're going to have that for a few minutes. And the way you might handle credentials is something along the lines of, before I start talking about the project that I wanted to speak with you about today, maybe a bit about my background. I'm a passionate filmmaker. I've done some projects for the international market, some feature films, direct. You can give a little bit of a background on yourself, and then you launch into your project. So it's a very natural way to segue from having the conversation to then taking the floor and talking about your project. Before you get into the actual description of the creative elements of your project, I recommend that you establish what exactly it is you're pitching. And the reason for this is, depending on what you're pitching, there are different criteria that the decision maker is going to be looking for to evaluate the project. So it's very helpful to know what it is you're pitching. Is it a TV movie? Is it a feature film? Is it a limited series? Is it an ongoing series? Each of those things have different evaluation criteria that if the decision maker doesn't know what it is you're pitching, then they're going to be, and I can remember many pitches where a producer or writer would start into their pitch and I would not know what it was they were pitching. So I would start listening to their pitch, looking for clues as to what the form was that they were pitching. And unfortunately, while I was doing that, I wasn't giving my full attention to the pitch itself. So it's very easy to say, just quickly, we see this as 12 one-hour episodes. It's a limited series. And if you can, it's also great to talk very briefly about who the target audience is and what the genre is. So you could say, okay, we see it as a horror and targeting to young men, 18 to 49. So boom, you've established for the decision maker in the space of 30 seconds what it is you're pitching, what the genre, what the potential target audience is. So now they can kind of sit back and listen to your pitch without searching for clues. And you've said it in a way that it's up for discussion, because obviously if who you're pitching to says, well, we don't do 12 episodes, we need 13, you're certainly going to be open to doing 13 instead of 12. Then you move into what I call the goods. And this is where you describe the creative core of your project. And ideally, this is where you can talk most passionately about what your project is about. And I recommend that you commence that description of your project with an intriguing question. So you could say something along the lines of, what if we were able to travel faster than the speed of light? That we had spaceships that could take us from system to system in hours instead of thousands of years. So you ask an intriguing question that ideally should make the decision maker, the person that you're pitching, lean forward and go, that's kind of an interesting idea. Then you launch into the log line for your project. So you briefly describe what your project is about. And I've included on my tip sheet some templates that you can use. And ideally what you're doing with your log line is you're describing the characters, the basic premise, and the central conflict of your concept. And then finally, you would describe what I call the true north, or basically the theme or thesis of your project. What's the underpinning drive of this project? The true north, because it literally should underpin every episode, every scene decision. This is the central core of your project. And to continue with my Star Trek example, if the log line for Star Trek is to follow Captain Kirk while he and his crew explore the fringes of the galaxy, the true north for that series is to boldly go where no one's gone before. So your underpinning premise is how you finish off the creative description. That whole creative description should only be maximum 2 to 3 minutes. You should get through the core of your creative description in a relatively short period of time. And your goal here is to be engaging, but very, very succinct. Now we move to what I call the canvas, and this is a section where you've given your relatively generic outline of your project, and now you can add additional information for context, whether it's additional characters or what the relationship, are there partners attached to the project or community. talent that you want to highlight, this is the opportunity to do that. Or if it's a series, you could talk about the arc of the series, the first season, or ultimately a partner through first season. But it is good to be specific with the decision maker as to what you're actually looking for. And then finally, I recommend that you close by talking about why this project is timely, why it's socially relevant, how it'll quote unquote change the world, but why is now the right time for this project? So you might say something along the lines of, to close, and it should be 30 to 60 seconds. Our project is about the importance of truth. We're looking for 2 scripts to be developed and a Bible. And we think that this is an incredible time with alternate facts and false news, that this could be a very, very timely place in history to make this project. So you see how that was very brief, but it tied up what the underpinning thesis of the project is, specifically what you're looking for, and why now. And then that's the end of your monologue, and you can seed the conversation back to the decision maker by saying, so that gives you a flavor of what the project that I want to do is about, and maybe if you have any questions, or I'd like to hear your thoughts. So at that point, you now ideally have a conversation with the decision maker. And just to reiterate, the whole tone here should be conversational. It shouldn't feel canned. And I'm going to talk a bit in my next bit about how to make it natural, but it should continue to evolve as a conversation. At this point, you should have a Q&A. In a perfect world, the decision maker will have some questions about your project, which is great. You want them to be engaged. If they simply say, yeah, send me a script, I'll look at it, you know they're going to not look at that script. They're not engaged. You didn't win them over. So ideally, you have questions. If they do raise concerns or they've got problems, don't argue. Just try to find out what's behind the concern. That leave it all around, come up with a solution. And but don't say that. Say that's an interesting idea. Let me think about it. And then in an evolution could be that they will start to make suggestions on the project. Again, this is good, and who to follow up with. It's get as much as you can on that. Now I'm going to talk about, so that's in essence more specific, whether HBO or Discovery or on whoever, you may or may not land it there, but designed it for a specific home. It's going to feel right, and it come across very strong.
Is pitch somebody something?
They actually have the decision makers articulating here. So the night of the week would it play on? What would be a then obviously the decision maker is going to be wrestling with. If it's a streaming service, what bucket will it go in? What other type of, the idea here is I don't pick from each. So that I don't recommend launching or starting and ask not your background at all. You can have, I don't recommend sliding anything across the table while you're pitching. The benefit of doing your practicing and repeating that many times is that it'll help you refine your pitch so that you can make it sound conversational. I recommend that you write speaking points so you know how, as I mentioned earlier, what the components are to your monologue and how to segue from one to the next. And you've come up with those turns of phrases that you're comfortable with. Write them down as speaking points, but don't try to deliver them verbatim. By practicing them again and again, you will refine those, you'll internalize them. And ideally, you want to be able to deliver your pitch as if you're telling a good friend about a new movie that you've seen and you're really excited about it and you really want them to check it out.
I actually used to actually pitch to somebody, a friend or a colleague, and I would record it.
while I was doing it, just on my phone. I would just book a time with them, say, I'm gonna pitch you, I would record it. Then you have somebody, you know, to interact with a little bit, but you record it and you can hear yourself, you can listen to yourself and say, oh, I didn't even get to this point, or, you know, I can do that better.
That's really good. I also pitch to I do it to multiple different types of people, because I find that the expressions of different people can throw you off your game. So to get as
Well, and
many.
you can tell if they don't understand something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you've memorized a pitch, then it's unfortunately even we heard from a professional actor that, you know, it's not that easy to do that. And the circumstances change, and that's the goal with the optimal pitch, is that if you know the components to your pitch really well, then you can adapt them to the circumstances. And that takes me to my last point, which is it's got to be concise. You have to distill your pitch down to the essential elements. And I know that's hard, especially if you're a writer or you're a writer-producer where you know this world, you know it so well. I actually had a client who wrote a 368-page background document to his project about the 10,000 years of history that led up to the story that he wanted to tell. And every question about the story, he goes, well, it's complicated. And unfortunately, that may be a true answer, but you can't know what's important and what's not important. Otherwise, you can get sidetracked very easily. If you know the core of your pitch, you distilled it down to the key, you can adapt it to the circumstances. I had a client who had a 1-hour pitch scheduled with YouTube Unscripted, and they had a 4-minute video, which is really good. And they said, okay, we want to do a half-hour pitch. And I said, no, you're not. You're going to have a 10-minute pitch, including the 4-minute video. And they said, well, we have an hour. You know, we want to really take our time and do this carefully. And I said, well, first of all, it's really hard to be entertaining for 25 minutes and 30 minutes and be focused. So, you know, knock it out of the park, 10 minutes. Your video's fantastic, and then have time for conversation and questions instead of trying to, you know, use up half that time. So they said, okay. They flew down to LA to meet with YouTube Unscripted. They went to the office of the decision maker, and the decision maker went, oh, I don't have you in my schedule. I think there's been a mix-up. So they went, what? So they had done all this work, got down there, and they had no time. And the person said, well, I've got a half-hour slot at 10:30. Can you stick around for that? And they were, okay. So they were so happy that they had a 10-minute pitch, because if they had a 30-minute pitch all prepared, they would have been frantically re-editing it, trying to figure out what to keep in, what to keep out. Then while they were delivering it, they would have been freaking out because they think, oh, there's big holes. So they were happy that they had a lean pitch, very concise. They got through their pitch in exactly 10 minutes, and they had 15, 20 minutes to chat with the decision maker about how the pitch was a fit for their service. And ultimately, they were successful, but they were very close to totally destroying their own opportunity. So one last concept that I want to impart is to the point about practicing your pitch and delivering it in front of different people and getting their reaction. One thing you can try is to test whether your pitch is repitchable. And I'll give you an anecdote. When I was at the movie network, I had an established production company came in, pitched their project, and then they were going down the elevator, and as I came out of the boardroom, I bumped into my boss, and he said, oh, who was that? And I said, oh, it's production XYZ. He goes, oh, yeah, they're good, they do good stuff. And he said, what were they pitching? And in that moment, I realized I didn't really understand. Well, it's about a dog that can read minds, and but there's also a woman who can time, and there's also these Russian, I don't know, it's complicated. So I knew in that moment that I could not repitch that. And you've got to accept the fact that if a decision maker takes on your project, they're going to have to be the internal ambassador. They're going to have to be the champion for your project. And they know that they have to sell your project to their boss, to finance, to marketing, communications, honor promotions, to their staff, to their colleagues, and ultimately to their subscribers. And if they can't do that, if they're not confident to go, this is really cool, here's why, then your project is not pitchable, repitchable. So I recommend when you make your pitch, concise, strong, polished, make your pitch to someone. When you finish, say, okay, pitch it back to me. If they don't get it right or it's not very strong, then you've got work to do.
All the more reason also to really invest your time and whatever funds you may have in any video that you're presenting, because you can't present something that you have to apologize for in terms of, say, well, I just shot it on my phone and it's been shaky and I would do it differently, because that is it. That is your shot. That is all you've got. And that is the thing, should you even get past this initial gatekeeper, exactly like Kevin said, they're going to be sitting around a table with 10, 15 other people, and they're going to say, well, I'm just going to show the video. And if it's not, that's your one shot. That's it. That's all you've got.
Yeah, when I was evaluating pitches or rough cuts or whatever, my background is on the technical side. So I can say, okay, I understand there's not been a sound mix, or they haven't color corrected that, or I know that's just a slug and blah, blah, blah. But if I'm showing that to anyone else, even if I say, okay, this has not been color corrected, don't look past that. People look at it and go, oh, it was really dark. So yeah, I know, it hasn't been color corrected. But I couldn't hear what they're saying. I know, because they haven't done a mix yet.
Or you're just looking at it for the character.
People can't look past those things. So I totally agree that if it's not amazing, don't use it. So I've taken up a lot of the time. Did you have any comments, or do you want to jump in with a question?
Yeah, just a couple just super quick things. As you're preparing for any meetings that you might have or trying to decide who it is you'd like to meet at the festival, we've launched something new this year, buyer profiles on BANFF Exchange. So for a lot of the 30-minute switch sessions or the networking sessions, which is our face-to-face sessions, which the lottery closes today, also breakfast and lunch with the decision maker, that sign-up's open on Monday. We have some buyer profiles, just sort of in terms of what's called mandates. The things that we're looking for to commission 2 new 1-hour series, female skewed, those kinds of things. So we have that information for a bunch of buyers that'll be at the festival, and we'll continue to add to that. So that's a really good resource. Do you want to go to some of the questions?
Sure.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Okay.
Tea first.
Tea first.
So the first question I have here is, how has your approach to pitching changed or not since attending Diversity of Voices? Well, first of all, I attended the Optimal Pitch session last year at Diversity of Voices, which you just got to hear a mini version of. So it's changed in that way, in that for the first time I had somebody formalize a structure for me that I had not put together from the internet. So I highly recommend that you go and see that full session. One of the things that I discovered, though, while pitching there, was that people really responded as much to me as they did to my projects. And so I would say that I've made sure since then to include, what is my connection to my projects in a very tangible way when I'm pitching now, because that was something that was not evident to me before. Yeah, my voice and how I connect to that material, where it came from, what part of my life it came from, why I'm passionate about it, was as for participating in Diversity of Voices. I wish I had known how different each meeting would be, because I had prepared these pitches, but like the tone of each meeting was so, so for one, I was sitting across from 3 broadcasters, like 3 people from a broadcaster. For one, we kind of found a stool somewhere in the hotel and we just had a sit down together. For one, we had a meeting over food. Each one was different, and so how I would have prepared each of those differently, or something for each of those.
Huge tip. Big, huge tip. When you're setting up your meeting, can you actually agree a time slot to meet? It's really wise to trade cell phone numbers, mobile numbers, because it can be a bit of a, as my old boss used to call it, a bit of a bun fight in there in the delegate lounge with so much going on. You're like, I'm by this pillar, I'm by that pillar. Like it can be a bit crazy. So you really do want to have each other's cell numbers, and people are very used to doing that. Don't call them at 3 a.m. But just make sure, like, you text them 5 minutes before your meeting. I'm here, I'm wearing a red shirt, I'm over by the blue chair, looking forward to meeting you. And they'll usually say, okay, I'm on my way, or I'm running 10 minutes late, or can we change our meeting time, or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I was going to throw in a couple things there. One is people are always late. So,
Don't be.
yeah, no, not you, but the decision maker, because remember when I was the first time I went to NIP, I couldn't go 30 feet without bumping into 10 people. So one thing I learned is, A, if you have a cell number, then you can at least find out if someone's going to be behind schedule. And the second thing is, don't schedule too many meetings back to back to back to back. Because if your decision maker's 10 minutes late, and then the next one's 10 minutes, like suddenly it's a ripple effect, and you don't want to be late, nor do you want to cut short your time with the decision maker. So allow time to breathe.
That's really good. And also I'd say the meeting time is what the projects that you're talking about, like for instance, my projects are big 1 hour dramas. So they need, in order for me to pitch those well, I need preparation time between the meetings. Like I can't go from, and I had multiple projects, so I can't go from one to another right after and be effective. I found I needed breathing room to be able to plan, and get my mind together for that next session or for that next meeting. What surprised me about diversity voices, the next question, how available and in need of content people are. I was really surprised at the amount of access that I received and the warm responses that I got from decision makers that I thought would just not be accessible to me as
I continue to tell my big need or the CBC or whomever, and you have to.
Absolutely, that
Meetings, so many.
have asked me also has been, do I need to bring a sizzle, or do I need to bring like what kind of visuals do I need? I had nothing like that. I brought no sizzle. I brought no visuals. Did my projects had big expensive dramas, and I didn't think that there was anything that I could bring that would reflect those dramas appropriately. My personal budget didn't allow me to create anything for them. And nobody was disappointed that I didn't have those things. That being said, there were lots of people that had cool brochures or the different steps to describe their project. I think it's a case by case for the project, but I did not feel those things were necessary.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what genre you're pitching. So for scripted things, quite often that is the case. If you're pitching talent, if you're pitching unscripted, specific kind of animation, something that very particular, sort of a microscopic look at.
Prepare specific materials, and the only time that doing what Jen said is if you have some proof of concept, whether it's a visual approach, animation stuff, something really unique, then it's helpful to have, but your pitch should not or photos.
Questions on here. How do you show them that? Typically, I use an iPad and I bring earphones that are sort of not earbuds. Often buyers or acquisitions people will carry their own earbuds. Do not offer them yours. That's gross. But have headphones that have headphones that fit over top of your ears. A small set is if you're planning on showing somebody something. So that's a really good thing. But I would do it on an iPad normally. If you only have a laptop, then do it on a laptop.
This is just a total aside. There is a little code check downstairs. So I didn't know about that last year before I went, or is there still? There may not be.
Last year.
There was last year, and it was very useful because I was not staying at the Banff Springs. I was staying at a hotel in town. And so, you need your little bag of stuff for the day. I found that very useful. Hopefully it's still there this year. And the last question I have here is, if you could do one thing differently in your diversity of voices experience, what would it be? And I think I touched upon this earlier. I would focus way more on, it's easy to get enamored by some of the names that are going to be there and some of the people that you want to meet and the broadcasters that you're familiar with and the places where you've decided that you think your project will fit. But I would focus more on distribution people, producers, and people that have a fit to my project in a strange way. So for instance, what one of my projects that I went to Banff with is right now, I'm in the middle of negotiating an option to have it turned into a podcast. I never thought of it as a podcast, but there are people who are looking for that kind of content as interim content between, you know, on the page. It's sort of like the new pilot in some places. So think outside the box a little bit. I would definitely think way more outside the box if I were going back, for sure. And I think that's it for my questions, or at least these ones that were directed to me.
So we've answered a few of the other questions. One here is someone was asking about the combination of funders and the financial structure. You know, what broadcasters work well together and distribute. I think a few things are, you have to kind of understand your budget in terms of what kind of money or what kind of level you might be thinking about, but you don't necessarily at this early pitch stage need to have a detailed financial structure. That is, unless you already have some funding, some financing. So you might have a Canadian broadcaster that, you know, committed to funding a certain percentage of, or a certain amount of funds of your project, and that's the point at which you have to start thinking about, okay, how do I fill the rest of this piece of pie? And then you get into, you know, financing plans where you're going to want an international distributor and you need to make another sale in Germany or things like that. But when you're doing your very, very initial pitch, you need to sort of understand where you fit in the ecosystem in terms of if it's a big, you know, expensive 1-hour drama, or it's, you know, a mid-level web series, or if it's, you know, a low-budget feature, you kind of micro-budget feature. You need to understand where you fit in the ecosystem because you might get questions about that. Yeah, I guess we can. What's optimally for a sizzle reel? And someone asked specifically for Netflix. I think it's probably the same for Netflix as it is for everyone else. Having produced, created, and pitched a ton of sizzle reels, I would not go more than sort of 3 minutes. And sometimes you're going to have two versions. You're going to have a 1-minute version and then a longer presentation reel that might be sort of up to like a whole scene, where it will be sort of 7 to 10 or more minutes. But generally in a meeting, you're not going to want to have more than 2 minutes to show somebody.
Just as maybe a bit of a side note, and I've heard the Netflix executives at a number of different conferences, and a couple things. One is they tend to like to see projects that are relatively far along. Some broadcasters like to get involved early and want to influence a project and have their creative input and blah, blah, blah. I've heard and seen that Netflix likes to have the project kind of fully formed before they have to make a decision. So they tend to be later on in the process. And the second thing that, again, I've heard this, and you can look at their content, is they are looking for a strong voice. They are not looking to, one executive, she said, if you say something along the lines of, well, what would you like me to do? You're basically gone. So you should have a strong voice of the story that you want to tell, the tone that you want to take and approach. And that's what they're looking for, is a strong point of view.
Okay, I think that's pretty much the end. Maybe we have time for just 30 seconds of closing remarks. So I'll give mine right now, which are simply do your homework, go through the BANFF website, do your research in the trades, and pack a warm coat. And we're really, really excited to see you at the festival.
Practice your pitch. Stay relaxed, make it conversational, and remember you're trying to get the decision maker to be as excited about your project as you are.
Yeah, and I would just say, try to remember that you didn't get into this because you thought it was going to be a sucky profession. You got into it because you love it. And try to remember in the midst of all those meetings that you love this, including, you know what, it's one of the things I discovered. I really actually like the sales part of this business. I really enjoy pitching my stuff. I really enjoy being there, meeting with the people. So it can be exciting. It doesn't have to be nerve-wracking, and try and embrace that part of it as part of the business you're in, not the thing that you have to do to get to the thing that you want to be doing. And have fun and enjoy BANFF.
It's beyond beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Beyond.
It's the best place in the world. Thank
Absolutely.
you, everybody.
Thank you.